My name is Phoebe, and I work here at Prairie Loft. And I really love to learn about reptiles and amphibians, and so that's what I want to tell you a little bit about today. So reptiles and amphibians are two kinds of cold-blooded creatures, and that means that they can't heat themselves up from the inside like we can, but they have to use the sunlight to get warm and have energy to move around. Reptiles are creatures that have scales or a shell. So that's snakes and lizards and turtles and crocodiles or alligators. And amphibians are toads and frogs and salamanders. And they don't have scales. They have wet, kind of moist, smooth skin. And today I have an amphibian to show you, and that is a toad that I caught here this morning. Toads and frogs you might get confused because they are pretty similar, but they have some differences too. So toads have bumpy skin and they live on the land mostly. But frogs have smooth, wet skin and they live in the water, right next to the water usually. So here's a book about reptiles and amphibians, and I'm going to show you a picture of a bullfrog. So there is a big old frog, and you can see it's got kind of shiny skin. And it has really webbed toes and lives in the water. And here are some pictures of toads. I hope you can tell that they have some bumpier skin, and their head's a little bit different shaped, and they have different toes that are good for digging on the land instead of for swimming in the water. So amphibians are creatures, they can live on both land and water. Reptiles usually only live on land, except for turtles live in the water. But amphibians, a lot of times will start their life in the water. So a frog starts as a tadpole that lives in the water, and then as it gets older it grows legs and can go live on land. And so toads too are good at living at both land and water. They spend most of their time on the land. And we have a couple different kinds of toads here, but the toad I have to show you today is a toad called a Woodhouse Toad. He's making some noise. He's probably ready to go free already. You can see he's got that bumpy skin that we talked about, and so that's how you know that it's a toad. You can see his throat moving. That's how he breathes. It moves his chin like that, his throat, and it pushes air into his lungs. So that's just how he's breathing with his throat right now. Making some noises too. So one way that you can tell that this is a Woodhouse toad, that's a species of toad, that's what kind of toad it is. It's got that white line down its back. It's pretty easy to see, right down the middle of its back. And also on its throat has one black spot. Do you see that? It's all clear except for that one black spot. Hey, you're okay. So those are a couple of the ways you can tell it's a Woodhouse toad. And they're the most common toad we have around here in Nebraska and at Prairie Loft. And you can see on his back there's these two little bumps right there and there. They're bigger than the rest of the ones on his body. And those are called parotid glands. It's a gland in his body that makes toxins. And so that's a way that it can defend itself from predators. So if a dog tries to eat a toad, hopefully it would spit it out because that does not taste good, the toxins that it secretes. And so it's okay for us to hold them. It's not harmful to us, but maybe you should wash your hands after you hold a toad. Maybe you've had this before if you catch a toad, but it also might pee on you. And that doesn't hurt you either. It just maybe is a little bit alarming, and that's what it's trying to do. It'll surprise its predator, and hopefully it would drop the toad and not eat it. So it's just water, it won't hurt you, but they might do that to try to get free. Toads also have on their feet a little bump called a spade. And a spade is also the name of like a little shovel that you use for digging. And toads also use their spades for digging. So you can see on its foot, there's the bottom of its foot, that black spot. It's like a callus. It's a harder spot of its foot. You might have calluses on your hands from playing on the playground or using a shovel or things like that make your hands tough, or on the bottom of your feet from walking barefoot. And that's kind of what toads have too. They have these spades that help them dig in the sand. They like to live around sandy soil or loose dirt, and so that helps them dig in the ground. They also have some on their front feet, but they're not as dark. Oh, that hand does. It's got some dark ones right there. Maybe you can also tell that our frog, oh my goodness, our toad has a transparent eyelid. So our eyelids are not transparent. You can't see through them. When you close your eyes, it looks dark to you. And our eyelids close kind of from the top and the bottom, and theirs just comes up from the bottom and closes their eye. Maybe you can't see it, but that helps them to see, to protect their eye when they go underwater, but so that they can still see, but their eye also won't get hurt. So we have 3 kinds of toads in Nebraska, but like I said, this one is the most common. So if you find a toad, it's probably a Woodhouse toad. But you can double check and tell by the white stripe on its back and by the one little black spot on his throat. Those are some good ways to tell. So I hope if you find a toad in the future, you'll remember that toads have bumpy skin, but frogs have wet skin that's smooth, and toads have dry skin. And if you want to catch it, you can gently catch it and then tell your mom or your dad or your friends all the things you learned about toads today. So, good luck finding some, and I hope you learned something today.